Because as we all know, sometimes work becomes a grind and we want to try to avoid that. Like, I don't like that feeling. I don't like feeling like it's rinse, wash, and repeat every day, every day, every day. That makes people dull.
This is Shop Talk Her Way with JeanAnn SaintGrace.
Is there a person in your shop who, whenever you ask how they are, they say they're fine, but they're really not fine? Are you that person? Hi, this is JeanAnn SaintGrace. Welcome to this episode of Shop Talk Her Way. And today we're going to talk about when we need help. And this isn't just for owners. This is for everyone in the shop and probably every human being across the planet, but we'll focus on our on our audience, and let's talk to our shops, our shop families, our shop members and team members. There is a deeply ingrained desire inside all of us to be okay, to not let other people know that we have problems, maybe that we don't have all the answers. And that can be a tough position to be in. It can also cause us to isolate away from the people who could possibly help us. And as always, I'm not just talking out of my hat. This is something that happens to me. It happens to me on a regular basis. It's deeply ingrained in my personality that I need to be fine and I need to be the one out there helping everybody else be fine. But it can be a lonely place. And I've experienced this not only in my personal life, but also as a shop owner. You know, you're expected to be the smartest person in the room. You're expected to have all the answers. You've got the weight and responsibility of the health and well-being of your team on your shoulders. And if you are where the buck stops and you're the only set of shoulders, it can be even more hard to bear that responsibility. Hopefully you have either a business partner, a spouse, somebody that's in the business with you who helps to share that burden, or a very trusted second in command who helps you carry the load as well. But a lot of what I hear from shop owners is that they're tired. A lot of what I hear from advisors is that they're overwhelmed. And a lot of what I hear from techs is that they feel unrecognized, unseen, and when the stuff starts to go downhill, it lands on them. So we have, as a community of people in the automotive repair industry, a lot of weight resting on all of us. And we all have different burdens to bear. And it's first of all important to talk about the difference between bearing a lot of responsibility and being like a victim who just wants to complain. There are definitely times when we just want to bitch. Like, let's face it, and I'm sorry for the language, but that just really covers it, right? There's sometimes we just want to air it all out and just let it fall and not have to have all the answers. And I think it's important that we have a place to do that for all of us. I don't need solutions. I just want you to listen to me complain, to air out my grievances, whatever that looks like. We just need a place to unload that and basically dump it, right? And hopefully whoever we're dumping that on is a willing participant who knows you just need for them to listen to you and not to offer you any solutions. And so we've got to be aware of the different levels. But then there's also this deep, what I'm going to call a burden of responsibility. And there's a lot of fallacies in our industry. I think there's a fallacy that every shop owner is a fat cat and they're just rolling in cash and they're taking advantage of their team members by not paying them enough. I think there's some fallacies that employees are whiny babies and we're running adult daycare centers. And I don't think that is true, but you'll hear that, right? We've all heard that. And it really honestly makes me cringe when I hear people talking about that, because in most cases, it's just not true. What is true is that as a shop team, we are a group of humans who have our own individual needs, desires, challenges, ways of communicating, levels of being able to accept help, um, even traumas that they're bringing with them into the workplace where they're afraid to ask for help, or they're afraid to talk about money, or they're this or they're that or the other thing. And this might feel a little touchy feely, but it's real. And I am blessed, I guess, for lack of a better term, that as a coach, I understand both the business side and I understand the human side. And I don't mind being that place where somebody just unloads their burden and lays it down. And then we pick through it and decide, what's the most important thing? How do we fix this? What's most important to the shop, to the business, to the team? And what things can we put on the back burner? What I neglected also to say right there is what's most important to the shop owner as the leader and head cheerleader of the team. And a lot of times I feel like, and I'm going to speak as a we because I was a shop owner, that we kind of pull ourselves back. We kind of create this false layer of impenetrability, kind of like a glass ceiling or a glass floor, where we don't want to engage at that level with our teams. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to beat this drum to death because it's so, so, so important in this day and age that we engage with our people, that whatever boundary we think there should be between an employee and an employer, those lines are blurring. And in order for us to have happy, productive, engaged teams and a shop culture that engenders teamwork and success and a level of prosperity, that we need to foment this feeling of we're all on the same team from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right, and from the front to the back. We have to start looking at ourselves as a team. And there might be someone on your team who might be a better leader in one area than you are. And that's a huge benefit. They might be the ones who step in as a mechanical mentor, or help the service advisor when things aren't going well, or as an owner, you're the one who steps in and sees one of your team members having a really bad day and you pull them aside and help them to move that challenge through their system so that they could come into the shop clean, so to speak, energetically clean, clear, with clarity, and or be able to adjust their duties maybe for the day so that they get some lighter work, or they get something that's not so taxing and they can still work, still have a good day, and maybe not be as challenged as they might be otherwise. So what I'm trying to get at is, how do we build this community? So from a bottom up standpoint, as the owner slash leader of the shop, I believe it's incumbent on us to be building the team culture. We need to offer our teams opportunities to play together. So whatever company outings that might look like, even training can be a company outing, but it's nice sometimes to offer them a time to play, whether it's going bowling or going to the lake and having a barbecue or going to a baseball game together, whatever that might look like. That helps to build them as a team. That helps them to lay down the challenges of working together and just go out and get to know each other on a personal level. And I would encourage you to ask your team, what kind of outings would you like to have? Um, One of my shops, they did an internal cornhole challenge, like a tournament, and they pulled their teams out of hats so that they didn't buddy up with somebody they already knew well. They played based on who they drew out of the hat, and the feedback from that was tremendous. I really got to know my coworkers. We really got, they had fun, they got to compete. It really helped to gel their team together. And the manager that I was working with, it was his idea, and of course he was very proud of himself, and he should have been, because it was very successful. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be something so small like having a set of cornhole boards and setting them up once a week and pulling teams out of a hat and playing through it. That would be a great like lunchtime activity. Or even if you guys want to play into this, maybe start your weekends a little bit early and shut down shop operations at 3 on Friday afternoon and do that and have like a Friday fun time kind of happy hour deal with some appetizers and some non-alcoholic drinks. Um, and just hang out, make it fun, have some treats, have some snacks, and have some playtime. These are the things that people start to look forward to. It offers them a break. It's something that gets them thinking outside of today's work or this week's work or this month's work. Because as we all know, sometimes work becomes a grind, and we want to try to avoid that. Like, I don't like that feeling. I don't like feeling like it's rinse, wash, and repeat every day, every day, every day. That makes people dull. So by getting some fun, getting some competition, getting their blood flowing in a way that is conducive to team building is a great thing. So as an owner, I really do believe that is one of our responsibilities. As an owner, as much as I said we don't want there to be a rigid line between our teams and our ownership positions, there does have to be a line, right? Because at some point, will probably have to also be the corrector, the person who says to them, "Hey, this didn't go quite right." You might have to, have a correction with them. So they need to be able to see you both as a boss and as a human being, but there's never going to not be some kind of a line there. It has to be what I would consider semi-permeable, right? There's times when we can goof off and have fun, but there's sometimes when we're going to need to be serious and be the boss. So it's important that we know that, right? That we get to know them, that we remove those barriers, but with the understanding that there's going to be times when that's going to have to happen. And if we're building respect within our team, and if we're taking the time to get to know them, to be involved with them, to build them up, to help them grow and become the team members that we want them to be, then that's going to go hand in hand. So we need to build respect with them, and hopefully those times when we need to do corrections become less regular and more potent because we've built that level of respect. And as you all know, I'm a big believer in the owner doing one-on-ones with their team to make sure that they're staying in touch with the team. Even if you're an owner who isn't in the shop all the time, I still think that at some level, if your manager is doing like the weekly one-on-ones, that you're doing it once a month or once a quarter to make sure that you stay in touch with them, that you know what's going on. um, I think it can be very toxic to be seen as the owner who just shows up, takes the money and leaves and isn't on the team themselves. So, depending on what role you want to have in the shop, then, that need for the frequency of the one-on-ones may be different, but I still think it's important. And as an owner, as a leader within your shop, then you need to build community also. And community for shop owners can look like different things. It can look like having multiple advisors. If you have a coach, if you have a financial advisor, if you have an accountant, if you have a this, if you have a that, those people can be your community. If you have a trusted advisor that you can go to depending on what you want, what you need advice with, or what you need to unload. Another great way is to find a community that you can become a part of, whether it's an automotive association, even start your own. If you want to reach out to other shop owners in your area and be like, hey, I'm putting together a mastermind, and once a month we're going to meet for dinner and talk about, what's going on in the shops. That's, a very casual way to kind of figure that out. And there might cause a little heart palpitations for some people thinking, well, these are my competitors. I don't want to be sharing ideas. And I'd like for people to kind of get out of that thinking that they're competing with anyone. You're mostly competing with yourself. You're mostly competing with the standard that you want to set, that you want to be a part of. If you have some super secret sauce that you don't want to share, don't share it. But honestly, the minute it gets out into the world, it's out there. So if your customers are experiencing a high level of customer service and they're experiencing the outcomes of those, then it's out there, right? So this idea of collaborating with people who we formerly saw as competitors is really, really important. And, as we make everybody as everybody does better, everybody does better, right? And I was talking to Jeff Compton, the jaded mechanic, and he and I were talking about, what's the problem with the image of our industry. And part of the problem with the image in our industry is that, unfortunately, and I am not advocating this, I'm just parroting the things that I see, that it's crooked, that it's greedy, that they take advantage. And if you can start to build one of these groups within your area, and you start to create this idea that all of you can do well, that nobody has to undercut anybody else, that everybody is honest and upfront, that you start to build this idea that we're all in this together. We're not enemies. We're not in any kind of conflict with each other. We're actually here to help build each other up. Then hopefully in your area, the reputation of all the shops in the area rise. Additionally, there are formal things like an association where maybe you get on a board or you go to a convention and you sit in some owners' classes and you start to meet some people, start to talk. You might join a coaching organization that offers group activities and you start to participate in those. Ultimately, like having a peer group or a 20 group or a mastermind group where you get together off site on a regular basis to actually like get into the meat and potatoes of what's going on in your shops and how do you fix the challenges, who's having success with what, how do we build this out. That for me, honestly, that was the thing that was enlivening the passion for my business, was being with other shop owners who had similar challenges and were finding ways to work through them. And I really have to say that was like the finishing touch. We'd been doing coaching in the coaching program we were in. We had to be in coaching for either 2 or 3 years before we could join a peer group, and it was the peer group that got us, the coaching gave us a lift, but the peer group was the next level. And getting around people so you don't feel like you're alone, so you're not the only one with these problems, especially like I said, if you're a solo owner who doesn't have a spouse or a partner or a second in command that you can lean on, this is the place where you can really start to grow and to realize you're not the only one with these challenges, that there are people with elegant solutions or might help you find the solution that works for you. So I really encourage that level of community building. I really encourage finding a way to work on that. Now, are you going to have to pay to play in most of those? Yes, of course you are, because there's usually a facilitator. There's usually somebody who's arranged meals, hotel blocks, set up meeting rooms, accumulated whatever information's necessary for the group, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you need to look at this as an investment. You need to look at this as an investment, not only in your business, but sometimes in your mental health, sometimes in your emotional health and your stress levels. Stress is a very dangerous, latent thing. It starts to build up in your system to where you don't even notice it. It's just normal that you feel like you're turned on high all the time. And getting that stress is a killer, right? We know that stress builds disease in the body. It does a lot of things. It's not good for us to be in a constantly stressed state. So building out or participating in something like a peer group, a mastermind, something like that, and look at whatever money you're spending as an investment. Um, and again, I know I am one, but investing in coaching is another investment in your business. It's not just money that, goes down the drain. It is money that hopefully comes back to you by releasing some of the stress, having better ideas come. Often in my coaching sessions, we're talking about not only business stuff, personal growth issues. How do I become a better leader? And how do I unload the stress? How do I find a way to build some good boundaries with my business so it's not consuming my life? And finding some kind of balance. I used to think that balance in work and life was like an even balance, but I think it can teeter totter one way or the other and still be in balance as long as it's not just totally out of whack and you're neglecting one side for the other. So, sometimes these things are going to cost money. And then, if that's the case, then we build that cost into our sales goals so that it's paid for. And there's a lot of shops that feel like spending or investing in coaching or investing in a 20 group or a mastermind is really money well spent, and it's really money that they're investing in themselves and their team and in their business, and it comes back to them in ROI. There's also proof, there's data. I don't have the exact statistics, but shops who have coaching generally have much higher profit margins. And it's because there's somebody there to help you focus on the numbers, to help you decode them, to help you adjust as things go on. And I know there are people out there that have had bad experience with coaches. Maybe they felt like it was too expensive and they didn't get enough out of it. There's so many reasons why it hasn't worked, but for the people that it does work for, it's a miracle. And honestly, I was one of those people. Our business was worth much, much, much more than it would have been if we hadn't been in coaching for that last 4.5 or 5 years. So I'm proof in the pudding. Was it a lot of work? Absolutely. Was it worth it? Yes, absolutely. And there's for those people who said I tried it and it didn't work, I'd encourage you to try again with a different group, find a different coach. Never settle for um, mediocrity in your coaching. If they're not helping you move the needle forward and giving you measurements to get there, they're not doing their job. And we also have to understand that coaches are not gods. Coaches are not Moses walking down the hill with the 10 commandments saying, thou shalt do this or thou shalt not do that. A coach should come without an agenda, but with their knowledge and expertise and help you build the business that you want to have, your shop, your way, right? And there are ways to have these discussions. Um, I did have a couple of coaching clients who were like, I don't want to talk about profit. I don't want to talk about profit. And and I was like, well, it's kind of important. And I more than once had to have this conversation of profit and greed are not equal things. We can make profit and have an authentic, well run business in its integrity and not be greedy and not be hurting our clients by overcharging, selling work that's not necessary, whatever that looks like. Profit is not the god either. The god of the auto repair service is service and care, client care and integrity and all those things that we would want if we were a client. So, a lot of times the coaching and the mastermind comes together. Um, as a quick aside, as you all know, if you listened before, WorldPAC and the WorldPAC Training Institute are the sponsors of my podcast, and I'm deeply grateful to them. And they are excellent partners to the automotive industry. And something that the WorldPAC Training Institute offers is standalone a master or peer groups where you meet periodically throughout the year. There is a monthly fee, but you get in with a group of people that are kind of at the same level that you are and learn from each other. And they provide a facilitator and make all the arrangements, and then you go do the thing. So you don't have to join a coaching company to have that. That's something that WorldPAC Training Institute is offering, and it's on their website. You can go and check it out. Um, so thank you to WorldPAC and WorldPAC Training Institute for being the sponsor of the podcast, but also for offering that option to people who may not want to enter into a coaching relationship, but do still want to have a mastermind opportunity. So, everything comes around, right? And it's important as owners, we are going to have to probably go out and find that community. There's a chance that somebody else might drop this in our lap, but you're going to have to, when the hook is thrown at you, when the carrot's dangled in front of you, you're going to have to seize it and take it and go forward with it. um, and it's a commitment, right? Because you're committing to another group of people who are going to become like family. I am adjacent to some 20 groups through some of my clients that have been together for years, and they just continue to grow and grow and grow and set the next bar and then set the next bar and go even deeper and more fine tuned into the business. There's kind of a logical process that in any business you're going to start with the game of miles, right? You're going to fix the big problems first, then the mid-sized problems where we get into the game of yards. But I think there's always going to be that game of inches that we should be working towards fine tuning, fine tuning, fine tuning, and learning more. And if the mastermind turns into an echo chamber where all they do is complain and everybody's got the same old problems and nobody's fixing anything, it might be time for a level up. It might be time for you to find a new group that is more in line with your needs and desires and not get hung up in other people's challenges. And that's okay. If you outgrow people, it happens, right? And it doesn't have to be conflict. It doesn't have to be, drama. It's just, I'm growing past this and I need something else and something different. And that's okay. But the most important thing is that as owners, we need to find community. We need to find our people who we can talk to. And like I said, as a coach and having been a client, there was a place that I could unload some of this. And once we hit 20 group, that was even better, because we had a coach and we had peers to talk to and hear what was going on. If it's not an industry peer group, then find a group. Find a group of entrepreneurs, other business owners. There's a lot we can learn from other businesses. So, a networking group or a Rotary Club or, whatever you have in your town that offers, engagement with other business owners, because there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to be said for having a network of people in your area that you can rely on. Hopefully, if you have a spouse that's not in the business, hopefully they are there and will listen to you talk. If they're not the person where you can unload that, maybe the coach is. Maybe you have a counselor or a therapist. Maybe you have a life coach. Whatever that looks like, there's so much value in being able to freely express yourself without judgment. Just get it all off your chest and then figure out what's important. A lot of times, once we voice our challenges, they lose their power and we see the solutions. So, I strongly encourage you to branch out, to not be afraid of people, quote unquote, stealing your ideas, because let's face it, the number of original ideas out there are dwindling. We still come across a few gems, but for the most part, there's somebody out there doing the thing that you just touched on and you think is the next genius idea. So don't be afraid to share. Let other people learn from your challenges, help raise their boat, and hopefully as they come through your life, they give you ideas that help raise your boat, and then everybody's boat rises. The days of being siloed as shop owners is too much. There's too many things going on. It seems like the world is spinning much faster. It seems like there's more coming towards us. And it's really, really important, I think, now more than ever for us to build out those support systems. And, as I often tell you guys, my topics come out of what's happening either in my coaching or for me. And in the last several weeks, I have had this like feeling of being like contained, like there's so much responsibility and there's nobody here to share it. And as soon as I started to branch out, I reached back into my network. I do have a coach. I have trusted advisors, friends who have been through similar experiences. I reached out to them, and between that group of people, I've really like shifted my compass and I'm back on track now. And the inner relief, the relief of that stress, the relief of that concern, that the relief of not knowing what to do because I was so spun in my brain, really made the difference. And if you're one of those people who is a verbal processor, which about 50% of people are, then just trying to figure out in your head is never going to work. Big secret. If you're like that, it's never going to work. You need somebody to talk to. And I used to be one of those people who would work and work and work and work to try to figure it out on my own, and just be exhausted from trying to hold it all together. But the minute I opened up and found somebody who could listen to me, maybe help guide my conversation and then help me find a solution, is priceless. And it relieves all that inner turmoil. It removes that exhaustion. I can't tell you honestly how different it feels from one day to the next this week, from understanding where I was and getting to where I need to be in order to move forward. So, I'm always here to tell you you're not alone. You're not the only one with these challenges. And you don't have to bear it alone. You don't have to be Atlas with the weight of the world on your shoulders. You can let that go. Some responsibilities are ours, but I think we have a tendency to take on more than actually it is ours to hold. So, to wrap everything up, please think about building community. Think about building community for your team. Think about building community for yourself. And these really are the pebbles in the ponds. When you start to build community for your team, they become more easeful, more engaged, not only in work but in their lives. And then you've shifted their families, and then you've shifted their spouses, and they go out and they shift. And so this is how, even without like consciously doing community service, I'm using rabbit ears, quote unquote, we're actually serving our communities by learning to be better leaders ourselves, by modeling vulnerability of saying I don't know the answer, or I'm stuck, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. That if we do that, then we show others that it's okay to do that. And then all of the stress kind of starts to bubble down, and then the success can start to grow out of that. So also, I want us to think about taking failure off the table. Failure is an F word, right? And we just really need to let failure go. We're constantly in a process of learning what works and what doesn't work. So if you join a group or you get a coach and it doesn't work for you, make a change. If you implement something with your team and it doesn't work and you're getting their feedback and it's like, "Gee, boss, I don't know about this." Don't take it off the table too soon, but if you've given it a good honest try, then pivot it. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Take the parts that are working, get feedback from your team, shift it and move it forward again and see what happens. But just the fact that they feel safe giving you feedback is a win. So there's always a win in what we perceive as a quote unquote failure. There's always something to learn. So please just take failure off of your table. Don't don't let it don't let it move you or keep you from moving. Try, and then try again, and then try some more. And again, this could be if you're doing it on your own and feel like the burden of all of this is on you, having a network of people, having trusted advisors who can help you to see where do you need to shift and move. makes it all a lot easier. So please don't become an island. Please don't become stuck in a place where you feel like you can't phone a friend or reach out for help. Most people, when you're feeling frustrated, that's your indication that you're trying to push the same rock up the hill over and over and over again. If you're feeling anger, if you're feeling stress, if you're feeling frustrated, phone a friend, phone a coach, find somebody to help you. Find the community of people who will gladly take you in and give you a cookie and tell you it's going to be okay, and then help you find real, honest solutions to the challenges that you're facing. But you don't need to do this alone. Nobody does. And then be that person, like I said, for your team. Be their cheerleader. Get in there in their one on ones. Be honest, be open, be authentic. Be there for them. And as you model that behavior, you're going to start to see that behavior also modeled in your shop, and you're going to see your team come together. So, trust the process, trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, shift it, but try and try again until you find the thing that works. But please don't ever let it be seen as a failure. So, as always, this is all the process of getting your shop your way. I had my shop my way. It's not always going to be the model that works for everybody, but I'm here to share. I'm here to open the conversation, and I'm here to help you have a sounding board. Get into the discussion groups, leave a comment, see what comes out of it, but try to be constructive with it. The biggest thing that hurts my heart is that you see somebody who's wanting to do better, and they get their a hand pushed down on them and said it's always going to be the same, there's no possibility for change. Don't be that person, because if you had let that thinking follow you around, you wouldn't be a shop owner now. You wouldn't be listening to this. I wouldn't have been a shop owner. I wouldn't be a coach. We all need hope. We all need help. We all need to be there for somebody else to help them come along. We might be like, okay, dude, yes, definitely follow this, but these are the parts where I ran into trouble. But don't just squash their dreams. Don't just put your paw on them and be like, nope, don't do this. It's a mistake. Because it's not fair. If we see them running towards a burning building, yeah, we might want to pull them back and be like, you want to think about this, put on some guardrails and some safety equipment, and then maybe run towards the burning building. But don't do it unprotected. Don't do it, and don't wholesale discount their desires and needs. So go out there, be a good member of your community, be good to your people, love them till it's weird. And until next time, this is JeanAnn SaintGrace with Shop Talk Her Way. Please like, subscribe, and share the show with anybody who you think will benefit, even if they're not in the industry. Hopefully there's some threads here that they can take with them as well. And as always, my contact information is in the show notes. I'm always here to field your questions, to help you, point you in the right direction. I might be the answer. I might know somebody with the answer, but one way or the other, we're going to get you your shop your way. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.